Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's video we are going to be looking at all the books that I read for the month of October, so let's just jump right in. So the first book that I finished in the month of October is actually a book that I started in August and I didn't finish it until last month, until October, and that is The Troop by Nick Cutter. I really did like this, so I don't know what my issue was that I didn't pick it up for 2 entire months, but I did have a bit of a slump in August, so I put it down and I think I picked it up back up in September, read the same amount of pages and put it back down. And finally I was able to finish it in October. I loved this. I will say though that thanks to my friend Gwen from Gwendolyn Kessinger, I was buddy reading this with her, with Allie Dunn, and with a few other people, and they of course finished a long time ago. But Gwen had told me, hey, when you get to this chapter, like, skip over it. It's not going to do anything to the storyline. It's not going to mess you up in any way. It just deals with the animal cruelty and you can move on from that. And so that's what I did. There is a lot of animal situations in this book. Here we are following a group of boys and they are at camp with their camp counselor. I think it's just the one guy. He's like a doctor and he's also the camp leader. And they get a visitor one night and this visitor is sick. And so I mean, stuff just goes downhill from there. As you're learning about what this man is sick of and all that stuff, you're diving into the storyline of the boys, their backstory, how each one of them is. There is one of the boys here that really has like no kind of sympathy or empathy towards animals. He likes to hurt animals. And so you get to know that early on in the story. And it has little parts here and there that really give you insight as to this one character. I don't want to say the name because I don't, if you haven't read this, I don't want to spoil anything for you. So there's the one chapter that deals with a much more aggressive form of animal cruelty that the minute I had started reading the chapter and when I saw that there was like a little fluffy animal that is so cute, and I was like, oh my gosh, wait, is this the chapter? And I messaged Gwen and I'm like, hey, is this the chapter you told me not to read? And she was like, yes, steer clear. So that's what I did. Skipping it really wasn't a big deal because, as I said, you already know that this kid is kind of mean and evil and he's already done things to other types of animals. So either way, it was a great book. The depth and the layers to this book is just incredible. You get to know the boys, the counselor, and you get to find out why this man was sick and what's happening. Like I said, I really did enjoy it. I ended up giving The Troop 4 stars. I had to knock off a star for the animal cruelty. That's just me. It just really hurts me in my soul, but the book was brilliant. The next book I read is The October Boys. This is actually what I opened up the month with. I believe that The Troop I finished like the first day of October, and then I immediately went into this one. I actually did a whole reading vlog on this, but it will not be going up. I was disappointed by this book. I wanted to love it so much, but it just didn't work for me. Up to the 70-page mark, I was like, oh my gosh, I love this book. It's so great. You know, the boys and the men and the supernatural creature. I was really loving it. But after that, I sort of feel like I stopped vlogging, and because the book just dwindled down for me, and that was it. Then I closed out the vlog and I was like, it was okay, but I wasn't really being honest. I was very disappointed by this book, and I mentioned in that non-existent vlog that this really made me think of it. Now, I don't like comparing books when I'm reading because each book is different And I hate comparing because each author's work is different and they're trying to bring something different to the table. I mean, we've already seen coming of age stories up the wazoo. You know, it's one of my favorite things to read in the horror genre is coming of age stories. But there comes a time where you just can't avoid comparing a book to another one. And it is just one of the loves of my life. One of the novels that I just absolutely love so much. So when this made me think of it, it sort of lost its chemistry, if that makes sense. Here we are following 4 boys on Halloween night and they are trick-or-treating. And all of a sudden they start hearing an ice cream truck. Now they're like, wait, it's October. We should not be hearing an ice cream truck. Now the music to the ice cream truck is very distorted and just sounds creepy. And so they start getting scared. And next thing you know, this ice cream truck starts following them. Well, one of them doesn't make it to safety while the other 3 do. And it's just basically these 3 survivors trying to figure out what this ice cream man is, what's going on, and basically how to defeat it. As I said, up to the 70-page mark, I was good. After that, it got boring for me and it was underwhelming. I feel like when we got to the main part of the story, what we've been building up this whole time to for the ice cream man, it was just missing something and it was just, again, underwhelming. I ended up giving this book 2 stars. As I always say, take my reviews with a grain of salt because no 2 people read the same book. So this can be a 5-star book, especially to someone who hasn't read it or didn't really love it, because I feel like people that didn't like it because of those weird moments in the books will really like this because this doesn't have any of those weird, you know, group situation that happens towards the end. It doesn't have a lot of the bullying that it has, that a lot of people have problems with. I feel like they would really like this book. So again, I recommend you read it because you never know. I will say that Adam Miller's writing is on point. His writing is very gripping and it was well written. It's just that the storyline for me wasn't well executed. So the next book that I read was Jennifer Strange by Kat Scully. This was a Nightworms book party. I will go ahead and link this one down below because this one is already out on the blog. Oh my gosh, I love this one so much and I'm so thankful to Nightworms and to the author for sending this our way. This is a YA horror book and here we are following Jennifer, and Jennifer has the ability to give demons and spirits and ghosts a body. Obviously there's more details to that, but the bottom line. So you're just following her, learning about her powers because she really wasn't told what these powers were or how to control them. So it's just following her as she's dealing with learning how to use her powers and being forced to use her powers without knowing how. This has family dynamics, which I loved. This has a lot of underlying tones of finding yourself and, you know, having resentment towards parents. It was so well-rounded and it was so good. It has a sister relationship. We have Jennifer and then we also deal with her sister throughout the story. It was so good. I ended up giving this one 5 stars. I highly recommend that you read this one, especially if this is a great one for horror newbies that want to dip their toes. This is a great one to check out. Next one was Helena, and this was another Nightworms book party. Thank you so much to the author Claire L. Smith, to Clash Books, which is the publishing company, and to Nightworms for this book. I did not know how I was gonna feel about this. As you guys know, I say it in all my videos, but I go into my books blind. I don't read synopsis or anything like that, or reviews. I actually don't read reviews until after I finish the book. And so going into this one was kind of like weird. I knew that the cover was awesome, so I was ready for it. It was a gothic horror novel. But you know, sometimes you go in hesitant because you just don't know. This one surprised me. It's not the perfect book that you will ever read. I found myself confused a lot. I feel like there was like 10 things happening in one paragraph and it was hard to follow. But besides that, I felt like it was such a good story. Here we are following Helena, and she is a mortician and funeral director, but she also has a special ability to see the dead. She is struggling with her finances, and so she decides to make a drastic move to this house that's closer to the funeral home, where these three brothers and sisters own the house. Like, their parents have just died, and so they rent this house out to Helena, and it's just her building this relationship and really getting to know these three people. But also in the back of the story, we're following a story of a serial killer. Like I said, this was great. I found that the only problem that I had with it is the flowing of the story. I feel like we were following so many perspectives. We were following Helena, the brothers and sisters, the serial killer, the ghost, and then also her dealing just with her life all together. And I feel like there was times that the author maybe didn't know how to incorporate everything, so it was like all at once, and you really had to take your time to really find out what was going on. Like I said, I was confused half of the times, but the story at the end sort of like wrapped up nicely. It was very atmospheric though. The atmosphere on this was phenomenal. It's a gothic novel that takes place in 1855, so it was great. I know a lot of people didn't like this one just because of that. I mean, it's a really short book, and I just feel like she tried to put everything that she wanted to in this story, which sometimes just muddled the storyline. But either way, I enjoyed it. This is not going to be for everybody, but I ended up giving it 4 stars. There's just some books that you're reading it and you're just like, what, huh? But at the end, the way it wraps up, and I think my love for Helena herself also helped me with the storyline. But yeah, there's just some of those books where you're just like, this probably deserves a 3 stars, but there was a little connection there that just made me give it 4 stars and made me really enjoy it. That book party is also out already on the Nightworms blog, so I will also link that down below. Okay, you guys, I don't know if to talk about this next book now or towards the end. And I think I'm gonna leave it towards the end. I like to do my wrap-ups in chronological order, but there's just times where you gotta leave the best for last. The next book I read is way out of my comfort zone. Like, here's me and like in Cuba is my comfort zone right now. That is The Dark Witch by Nora Roberts, or Dark Witch, not The Dark Witch. This is book 1 in the Cousins O'Dwyer, or O'Dwyer. Why is that so hard for me to say? O'Dwyer's trilogy. Okay, let me tell you how I came up on this book. First off, I heard Chelsea Palmer talking about it about a year and a half ago in one of her videos, and when I saw the cover, I just really liked it. It looked like a dark, whimsical story, and then the title Dark Witch. And I was like, oh man, I want to read this. I bet you it has like dark magic and it's just atmospheric. I knew that I wanted to read it in the fall because it gives me fall vibes. Now, I can't remember what Chelsea Palmer said in her video, so that was a long time ago. I just know that this book gripped me. Well, it is very atmospheric, and it is about witches, and there is magic, but it's a Nora Roberts book. I've never read Nora Roberts. This is my first book by her, and it was very romance heavy. It was like a contemporary witch story, which I just never read that kind of book. But I really enjoyed this. When we start off the book, we start off with a story of a mom and her kids, and all you know is that she's trying to battle this like evil evil entity, and he's trying to get her. Like, he wants her, and he's like, you are going to be mine, and she's like, no sir, I don't think so. And all you know is that she leaves her powers to her kids, and then she goes to defeat this evil thing. And so we fast forward on to Iona, and Iona, she lives in the States, but she's learned a lot about her descendants from her grandmother, and so she goes out to look for her family, which is in Ireland. I believe that that's one of the things that attracted me to this book on Chelsea's review, or I think it was one of her wrap-ups. Again, I don't remember what she said, but I'm sure that if she said Ireland and then I saw this cover in Dark Witch, that attracted me. I don't know if you guys know, but one of the places that I want to go to, it's my bucket list, it's my #1, is Ireland. I don't know why, but I have this fascination and I just want to go to Ireland so bad. So when I see stories that are set in Ireland, I'm there. I don't care if it's romance, I don't care if it's horror, I don't care if it's sci-fi, I don't care what it is. If it's set in Ireland, I'm gonna read it. I don't know what my fascination is. And so Iona goes to travel to find her family, to see if she belongs. She's never belonged anywhere. And of course, she's a witch. So when she gets to Ireland, her cousins are just so happy to meet her. And so they are still trying to defeat this evil man that we see in the beginning of the book. So it's just her finding herself, finding her way as a witch, falling in love. There's horses in the story, which I didn't know I needed until I read it. I really did enjoy Iona's character. I enjoyed her cousins very much. I enjoyed the scenery and the setting of the book. This is just one of those books where I never thought I would read and would actually enjoy. And when I bought this book, I bought it off a book outlet a long time ago, and I bought all 3 books because I do want to continue. I want to continue with the story. Thank God, because like I said, I bought all 3 books like a psycho. But I'm so excited to continue this story. Iona just has a special place in my heart, and I want to see what else comes from their adventures. I ended up giving this book 4 stars. Next book that I read was for Fright Week, and that was Halloween Night. I finally finished Halloween Night. I just can't believe it. I was very surprised when I went on to Goodreads what low ratings this has. Y'all, this is a 90s horror book. I mean, it's R.L. Stine, it's a 90s book, and it is what it is. It's cheesy, it's ridiculous, but it's so good. Here we are following Brenda, and the book opens up with her and a group of friends just hanging out, shooting the shit, and they're talking about Brenda's cousin Haley, and she's just like, you know, Haley's parents are going through a divorce, so she just decides to come. Her parents decide to send her to her aunt and uncle's house to stay while they sort out their divorce. And so Brenda doesn't like Haley too much. Haley is like, she's two-faced. She acts one way in front of her parents, or her uncle and aunt, Brenda's parents, and behind their backs, she's a bitch. She ends up stealing Brenda's boyfriend, one of Brenda's friends' boyfriend, and she's just all around not a good person. So Brenda and her friends come up with a way to murder Haley, and it's just that story. Like I said, it's cheesy, it's ridiculous, but I really liked it. It was a cheesy, fun Halloween time. I ended up giving Halloween Night 4 stars. The next book I read was For the Buddy Reads to Die For, and that is Let the Right One In by John Ashvidelinquist. I don't know how to say that last name. I tried to practice it a million times. I did listen to this book on audio, and they say his name on audio, but I can't get it, okay? I'm sorry. This book is about Oscar, and Oscar is bullied. I mean, he is harshly bullied in school. He's a loner. He doesn't have friends. He's just sad. And his imagination is wild. One day we hear that there's a murderer amongst the town, and so he starts like envisioning himself as a murderer. I mean, he's not the murderer. I don't know if that's a spoiler, but he's not the murderer. He's a little kid, but his imagination takes a hold of him. He doesn't have any friends, so he just decides, hey, let's make pretend I'm the murderer. And he just like recites all these scenes in his head every time they find a body. And he's just a loner, and one day he comes across this girl that lives in the same community or building as him, like I think like right next door to each other, and she is Eli. And this is just a story about their friendship as well as the murders that are going on in their town. Eli is a little bit weird and strange, so he's always trying to find out why does she act how she acts, and it's just him putting the puzzle pieces together and just trying to find himself, as well as trying to find out who this little girl is. This is a very well-loved book. I mean, at least everybody that I read this with in the Buddy Reads to Die For loved this book. I liked it. I thought it was a very different novel. The main point of the book was brilliantly written, but I felt a disconnect between me and the book. I don't know what it was. I don't think I've ever read a translated novel, so I don't know if that is the case with this. This is a translated novel. I believe it is Swedish. I think he's from Sweden. Yeah, it's like a Swedish novel, so it's translated. I don't know if that messed with me. I love how different it was for the story that it was, but it was lacking something for me. I will say that there was one part that we see, which is Victoria's point of view. I don't want to say too much, just in case you just don't know what this book is about. I don't want to spoil it for you. Victoria seems like a very minor character in this book. And although we only see her for a very short time, her character to me speaks so loudly, and it was just one of my favorite parts to read. I ended up giving this book 3.5 stars. Again, it's a very loved book, so you might love it as well. Just for me, it was missing a little thing. I don't know what the thing is, but it was missing something. The next one that I read was also for Fright Week, and it was Harrow County, Countless Hanes by Cullen Bunn and Tyler Crook. This is a graphic novel that I didn't know I was missing. I loved this. This follows, it's a story about a witch and about witches and about a town killing a witch, and this witch saying, you know what, you haven't seen the last of me. I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna make you all pay. And she's doing all of this while she's dying because they are killing her because she is a witch. 17 years later, we have Emmy. And everybody's looking at her kind of peculiar because I believe she's either turning 17 and that's like a big deal, or 18, one of those two ages. And everybody's just watching her because they're like, is she the witch? Is this Hester, which is the original witch that we killed at the beginning of the graphic novel? Is this her? We need to be careful. And so just in case it is her, they're hunting this little girl, Emmy. And it was just great. It was fantastic. It was, the artwork in here is so, it's dull, but it's amazing. It just goes with the atmosphere and the plot of the graphic novel. I loved it. I ended up giving this one 4 stars. I'm ready to dive into volume 2 for that one. Next book I read is The Cipher by Kathy Koja. I'm not going to talk too much about this book because I'm actually working on a vlog for this book and another one. So I'm just going to go and say what the premise is and what I gave it. So whenever that vlog is ready, I will link it down below if you're interested in watching. Here we are following Nicholas and Nakota. They are friends. One day they find this dark hole in a storage room of Nicholas's building, and it's just a hole, a black hole. It's like, it's open, you see it, but it's hard to see, and all you know is that it's there. And this just really sparks an interest in Nakota, and they want to know what this black hole is. Nakota is just like, hey, we need to explore this. We need to go down there. We need to see what happens. She comes up with like a bunch of things to like put around the area to see how those things would react to the hole and vice versa. She just becomes like obsessed with this hole. And Nicholas, like, he sees this hole and it's fascinating to him, but at the same time, he's sort of like guarded towards it. This follows their friendship, and it follows what effects this black hole can have on them individually. So again, not going to talk too much about it. I will leave the link down below. And then the last book that I read for the month of October is The Boy in the Woods. This is a novella, a new novella by Scott Thomas. He is the author of Kill Creek and Violet. This book actually came out Halloween Day. It was a surprise to everybody. And so yeah, I was super excited to read it. Scott Thomas just has that writing, man. Kill Creek was gripping. Violet, although I found the majority of it to be boring because there was a lot of descriptions, like unnecessary descriptions, his writing still kept me gripped enough to to finish the story, and that book gave me like little chills here and there because of how creepy some scenes were. So I was really excited to read this. This is a little novella. I loved it. Here we are following Eddie, and you know that Eddie is a little bit disfigured in the face. He has scars all over his face. So he automatically, because of this, is bullied. He's bullied in school. He's bullied everywhere he goes. You just feel for him, man. And it's so sad. One year he ends up going to a summer camp, and for one reason or the other, he has to end up staying one extra night. So like everybody from the camp leaves this one night, and he has to stay an extra day because his parents can't make it to pick him up from the camp. But little does he know that there's a little somebody extra there that whose parents couldn't pick her up either, and it's like his little crush. He's had a crush on her this whole entire time. And so they're having their dinner, but something happens that night that changes, I mean, everybody's life. Something evil has infected the counselors. It's just a story of him and his friend June trying to survive the night and trying to find a way off this camp before they get murdered themselves. It was such a typical slasher camp slasher horror, and that's what my heart loves. It was so good. The writing on point, gripping. It's such a short book, thank God, because I didn't want to put it down. It was fantastic. I ended up giving this book 5 stars, highly recommended. Alright guys, I have saved the best for last. I think this has become my favorite book of the year. I loved it so much. It is just... I can't stop thinking about it. Honestly, I have thought about this book multiple times a day ever since reading it. And I think I read this. This book was probably at the mid-mark between all my other books. And still, I can't stop thinking about it. And that is The Invisible Life of Addie Larue. I knew I was going to like this book. Oh, by V.E. Schwab. I knew I was going to like this book, but I just had no idea how much. I listened to the audiobook. I recommend the audiobook because the voice and the infliction that the narrator gives, let's call him the devil, is incredible. Oh, I'm sure you guys know the synopsis of this already, but basically we follow Addie, and she is set to wed this guy, but she just doesn't want to. She looks around and she's like, I don't want just a normal life. I don't just want to be married and live, you know, day to day and deal with just, you know, she would look at her mom and her dad, and she wanted more out of life. She wanted to live. And so she ends up skipping out on the wedding. And that same day, she's like trying to call out to a god to help her. She's like calling out. But one of the things that her grandmother, I believe it was her grandmother, always told her is don't ask for things from the gods that answer at night. Meaning like, those are the dark gods. Don't ask for anything. Don't deal with them. Don't even, just no. But when she is asking for one of the gods to help her, well, yeah, one of the dark ones come. And she's just like, listen, this is what I want. I don't want to be tied down. I want freedom. I want to live. I just want something different for my life. And he's like, no. And she's like, come on. I mean, she begs to such a point that she's like, I will give you anything. And he's like, deal. I mean, the minute that you say, I will give you anything, and he's like, deal, I would have been like, no, never mind. Never mind. Just kidding. But she's just like, yes. I mean, she is happy about this. And what she doesn't realize are the consequences that come with her asking for this. Basically, she has freedom, all right. Everybody that she meets ever in life forgets her the minute she walks out of the room. Anybody, everybody. So she wasn't expecting such a lonely life, and plus she wanted to live, so she is immortal, like she lives forever. So we are following her through a 300-year period. It's a really long time, and so it's just her walking through life with nobody remembering her until one day somebody does. I can't talk about this book without getting like teary-eyed, without getting happy, without feeling sad. I was swooned by this book so badly, you guys. I can read this book over and over and over again. It was so good. It was so emotional, following Addie and following her emotions when somebody finally realized and remembered who she was. It was just fantastic. If you haven't read this book, I highly recommend it. Is this book going to be for everybody just because it's my favorite book? No, it's not going to be for everybody. But I will say that the majority of the people that I hear talking about this book and the reviews that I have seen have all been stellar 5-star reviews. So fantastic book. Favorite of the year. And I highly doubt seeing any other book knock this one from first place. I'm just saying that. So spoiler alert for my favorites of 2020. So that's it, you guys. Those are all the books that I read for the month of October. Let me know what your favorite book was down below. Which one was your least favorite? You know the drill. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.